So in November, we traveled to Japan, explored beautiful cities, we hiked mountains, and of course ate a lot of food. Before I left for this trip, I heard so much about how difficult it would be to be vegan in Japan, and so I over-prepared. And while there was, of course, some challenges, it was not as hard as everyone led me to believe. I didn't miss out on sushi, ramen, karage, or even okonomiyaki. We had a fully vegan breakfast and dinner at a Ryokan in Hakone. We even found vegan bentos at a train station on one of our long travel days. I'm going to share all of my research and everything I learned along the way about being vegan in Japan. So the only caveat here is that I did spend most of my time in major cities such as Tokyo and Kyoto, so that's where I'm going to focus on today. So if you're planning to visit more rural areas, it might be a little bit more difficult, but I would argue that's probably true with any country you're visiting. So let's talk about restaurants first. I heard a lot about how substitutions or asking for substitutions isn't very common in Japan, so I was really hesitant to just walk into a random restaurant and start asking for substitutions or for accommodations. You know, I only know some very basic Japanese, so I was also worried about my ability to ask for those things and to see if there was any accommodations that could be made. The good news is that you don't really have to do that, because if you look at Happy Cow, there is so many vegan restaurants in Tokyo and in Kyoto, and then we also found some in some of the smaller areas that we went as well. I was super surprised at how many vegan options there were in these cities. If you do want to wander in somewhere and see if they have something that could accommodate you, I actually printed out a sheet of paper that said exactly what I couldn't eat in Japanese to make sure I could get the point across of like, hey, this is what I can't eat. Is there anything to accommodate? I ended up using this in a grocery store when I was trying to figure out which onigiri were safe to eat. It was super, super helpful. Towards the end of my trip, I actually found that some vegan restaurants had a little business card version of the giant sheet of paper that I printed out, explaining exactly what you can and can't eat or if you have allergies. But this is great because it also has a QR code where you can look up recommended restaurants. And this one is from Marugoto Vegan Dining in Asakusa. So that was super awesome. At another restaurant, I actually found this map. This was in Tokyo as well. And it's this huge map of all the vegan restaurants or restaurants that serve vegan options. I have the online resource that I'm going to link in the description. So we knew that we wanted to stay in a ryokan while we were in Japan. It was a little challenging to find a ryokan that was in the area we wanted, was available, and also had vegan options. Because if you don't know, when you stay at a ryokan, typically breakfast and dinner is included. We stayed in this wonderful ryokan in Hakone, and when I booked the room itself was tied to the vegetarian option. In this case, it was called vegetarian Shojin Ryori option. And I contacted the ryokan and asked them, hey, is it possible to accommodate vegan, not just vegetarian? They said, yes, that's totally fine. And yeah, the food was absolutely incredible. There was actually a fully vegan ryokan in Kyoto. It was just booked on the days that we were looking to stay. So another option I think would be super cool is a temple stay where the food typically is vegan by default. They seem to be a little bit harder to get a hold of, the ones that I looked into, but I think next time we go to Japan, I would love to do a temple stay. I think that would be super cool. As far as challenges go, we did learn pretty quickly that most restaurants don't open until noon. So if you want to eat breakfast, I would plan accordingly. We ended up picking up bagels from a bakery to have in the morning, and we also went to a natural grocery store and got a couple things. I found that the natural grocery stores tend to be a little bit more accommodating. They just have a lot more options in my experience. Konbini. So the konbinis tended to be a little bit more difficult as a vegan. Things that you would normally expect to be vegan by default are not, like pretzels, for example. might have milk in them. There are some onigiri that are typically safe, like the salt onigiri and usually the pickled plum onigiri, but not always. There is a creator called Itadaki Healthy, I believe, and she's a vegan nutritionist that lives in Japan and has a lot of great resources about finding vegan options in Konbini if you're interested, because I did find that that was one of the most difficult things to navigate. Supposedly Natural Lawson does have more options, but we didn't come across too many of them in the areas that we were exploring. Hopefully this video is helpful if you're planning to visit Japan anytime soon. If you have any questions, please comment below and I'll do my best to try and help. Bye.